Everyone thought Dean Martin was the lovable drunk, a glass of scotch in one hand, a wink in the other, and that lazy, golden voice that made you forget the world was ever cruel. But what if the drink was just a disguise? What if the king of cool was watching everything and waiting for the moment to strike? One night in 1964, on the glittering stage of the Sands Hotel, the act dropped. The smile faded, and Dean Martin did something that left 800 people in stunned silence, then roaring to their feet. What happened that night wasn't part of the show. It wasn't scripted, but it may have been the most unforgettable performance of his life. And what he whispered, only one person knew the truth. Until 50 years later, Dean Martin wasn't just playing a character. He was the character. Slurred words, offbeat jokes, the glass of scotch, always in hand. It was all part of the act. Behind that teetering charm and sleepy smile was one of the sharpest minds in show business. And most people never caught on. He called it drunk chic. The secret? That glass was filled with apple juice. Always was. While the world saw a lovable fool stumbling through lyrics and flirting with the front row, Dean was reading the room. Calculating. Observing. Disarming his audience with laughter so they'd never see the real man watching behind the haze. It worked like a magic trick. The tuxedoed clown with a pinky ring could say whatever he wanted, roast celebrities, tease mobsters, charm women, and mock the powerful, all without consequences. Because how could you get mad at a guy too tipsy to mean any harm? But the truth was, Dean Martin was never off balance. He just wanted you to think he was. And on one freezing Las Vegas night, when a predator in a silk suit thought he could humiliate someone too small to fight back, Dean dropped the act. And when he did, everything changed. The year was 1964, and the Sands Hotel wasn't just a casino. It was the epicenter of the universe. If you were anybody, you had to be there. Mob bosses clinked glasses with movie stars. Senators gambled next to crooners. Every inch of the Copa room pulsed with perfume, cigarette smoke, and the quiet tension of power. That Tuesday night, the place was packed. Red leather booths overflowed with high rollers and their well-dressed shadows. Tables buzzed with whispered deals and laughter just a little too loud. The chandeliers flickered above, but all eyes were locked on one man, Dean Martin. He glided across the stage like he owned the place, because in many ways, he did. That's Amore floated through the air as Dean lazily toyed with the lyrics, letting the audience hang on every pause, every wink. Women swooned. Men chuckled. The music was smooth, the rhythm easy. Everything felt right. Fun. Effortless. But beneath the glitter and glamour, a different story moved quietly through the room. Her name was Elena. No spotlight followed her. No applause met her entrance. She weaved between tables, carrying trays and fake smiles, unnoticed by the powerful, invisible, like so many who made this glitzy machine run. Dean was crooning love songs to the stars. But in the dim glow of the floor, a storm was already forming, and it was heading straight for table 4. And no one saw it coming, except Dean. Elena wasn't part of the show. She wasn't rich, famous, or connected. She was 23, exhausted, and running on hope and aching feet. Her heels pinched with every step, and the fake smile she wore was cracking under the weight of survival. No one at the Sands knew her name. No one cared. To them, she was just Miss, or worse, Hey You. But back in her tiny apartment on the rough side of Vegas, a 2-year-old boy slept in a crib held together with twine. A neighbor, half asleep and half paid, was watching him while Elena chased tips under chandeliers. Every drink she carried was a step closer to rent, to diapers, to the next can of formula. There was no safety net, just this job. That night, Elena was assigned to table 4, the so-called whale table. It was the kind of table most waitresses avoided if they could. High-rolling egos, demands wrapped in dollar bills, the worst kind of rich. And seated at the center of it all was a man called Mr. Sterling, new money from Texas with an old-school sense of entitlement. He wore his wealth like a costume, dripping gold and attitude. His laugh was loud. His patience was thin. He didn't come to the Sands for music. He came to feel powerful. Elena knew his type the second she saw him. What she didn't know was how far he'd go to prove it. And the moment she reached for his glass, everything began to unravel. From the moment he arrived, Mr. Sterling treated the room like a playground built for him alone. He barked orders, snapped his fingers at busboys, and laughed at his own jokes louder than anyone else ever could. The kind of man who thought money was the same thing as class, and that cruelty was a sport reserved for the rich. By the time Elena reached his table, he'd already sent back 2 steaks, one too rare, one looking at him funny. His entourage, a pack of sycophants in shiny shoes, laughed on cue and raised glasses with greasy admiration. But Sterling wasn't interested in jokes anymore. His smile had soured. When Elena passed by with her tray, his eyes locked on her, not with interest, but with that cold, calculated look of a man who enjoyed making things break. "Hey, sweetheart," he barked, loud enough to silence nearby tables. "My glass is empty. You blind or just stupid?" Heads turned. Laughter paused. Elena hurried over, keeping her voice calm, her eyes low. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'll bring you another right away." But he wasn't finished. As she reached for the glass, he grabbed her wrist, tight. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to own. The table went silent. His voice dropped to a growl. "Don't tell me you're sorry. Tell me why I shouldn't have you fired right now." Her heart pounded, not just from fear, but from everything that hung in the balance. Her son, her rent, her dignity. She tried to stay small, stay quiet. "Sir, please. I'll get your drink." The band played on. Dean was still smiling from the stage, still crooning, still calm. But something in the air had shifted, the kind of shift only a predator and a protector can feel. Because sometimes, the man on stage sees more than you think. Elena returned with the drink, a double scotch neat, just how Sterling liked it. Her hands trembled as she approached, the weight of 1,000 what-ifs pressing down on her. She just needed to set the glass down and get out clean. One motion, no mistakes. But Sterling had already made up his mind. As she leaned forward, careful, controlled, trying not to spill a drop, he moved. A flick of the elbow, so small it might have looked like an accident. But it wasn't. The crystal glass clipped the edge of the tray, and then, crash. The sound sliced through the Copa room like a gunshot. Scotch splattered across Sterling's $1,000 Italian suit. Ice cubes scattered like shrapnel across the carpet. And just like that, the music didn't stop, but the world did. Sterling launched to his feet, his face purpling with rage. He didn't raise his voice, he detonated. "You clumsy little idiot. Do you even know how much this suit costs? It's worth more than you'll make in a lifetime." Elena dropped to her knees, panic overtaking instinct. She scrambled to clean the mess with a linen napkin, tears blurring her vision. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sir. It slipped. Get away from me," Sterling snarled, kicking the napkin from her hand. Not a hard kick, but a violent one. A statement. A message to the room. "This is how you treat the help." The floor manager rushed over, tuxedo flapping, trying to calm the storm. But one look at Elena, broken and sobbing on the floor, and it was clear she was about to lose everything. The tips, the job, the chance to survive. And that's when it happened. The music stopped. Not a fade, not a cue. A clean, sudden cut, like a blade through velvet. Dean Martin stood at the center of the stage, his hand in the air, signaling the band. No more jokes. No more winks. The haze was gone. Dean wasn't smiling anymore. And for the first time that night, the king of cool started moving. When the music stopped, the silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was charged. 800 people held their breath. Forks froze midair. Laughter vanished. The stage lights still shimmered, but the man standing in them was no longer the playful crooner with a drink in his hand. Dean Martin had dropped the mask. He placed the microphone gently on the piano, thump, and stepped down from the stage. No stairs, no hesitation, just a clean, practiced hop onto the carpeted floor. He wasn't stumbling now. He wasn't slurring. He moved with the quiet power of a man who'd once worked steel mills in Ohio, who'd dealt blackjack in smoke-choked backrooms, who knew what it felt like to be small in a room full of giants. As Dean moved through the tables, the crowd parted. Mob bosses, movie stars, politicians, they all shifted aside like the sea before Moses. He didn't look left or right, didn't wave, didn't smile. He only had eyes for table 4. Sterling, mid-rant and drunk on his own ego, looked up and froze. For a split second, he grinned, expecting a joke, a pat on the back, maybe equipped to smooth things over. "Dino, look at this mess, huh? Can you believe the help these days?" But Dean didn't smile. He didn't stop until he was inches from Sterling's face. He looked down, not at Sterling, But at Elena, still on her knees, clutching a napkin and trying not to dissolve into tears, Dean reached down. Not rough, not performative, just real. A hand, steady and warm, helped her to her feet. "Stand up, sweetheart," he said, voice low, soft, human. "You don't bow to him. You don't bow to anybody." Elena blinked at him, mascara running, trying to speak, but Dean gently hushed her, took the napkin from her trembling hands, tossed it on the table like trash. Then he turned, and for the first time all night, Sterling looked scared. But Dean Martin was just getting started. Sterling's grin wavered. He wasn't facing a lounge singer anymore. He was standing face to face with a man who'd seen real darkness and didn't blink. "Now hold on, Dean," Sterling stammered, trying to claw back control. "She ruined my suit. I spend 50 grand a weekend in this place." Dean glanced at the wet silk clinging to Sterling's chest like a deflated ego. Then, calmly, with a voice like velvet over steel, he said, "I've spilled more booze on my tuxedos than you've ever drank. It dries. It cleans. But being a bully?" He stepped closer. "That stain doesn't come out." The room was frozen. Every eye, every breath, every ounce of attention locked on them. Sterling's chest puffed up. "Do you even know who I am? I could buy and sell this whole hotel." Dean didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't raise his voice. "You might buy hotels, pal, but you can't buy class. And you damn sure can't buy the right to treat a woman like dirt in my room." The weight of that sentence dropped like a hammer. And still, Dean didn't raise a hand. He just leaned in, close, closer, until the two men were nose to nose. And then Dean whispered, 5 seconds. That's all it took. 5 seconds of words, unheard by the crowd, that turned a red-faced billionaire into a pale, trembling shadow of himself. Sterling's smirk evaporated. His breath caught. His eyes darted to the exit. Dean stepped back, straightened his tux, turned to the floor manager. "He's leaving. His check's on the house. But if he ever sets foot in the sands again while I'm breathing." He nodded toward the back of the room. "I walk. And Frank walks. And Sammy walks." That was the nuclear option. The Rat Pack was the sands. Without them, it was just another building in the desert. The floor manager's jaw dropped. He didn't even hesitate. Security. 2 men appeared like ghosts, flanking Sterling before the man could even think of protesting. He didn't scream. He didn't argue. He just left. But the real shock hadn't even come yet.